This next panel, we actually did something similar last year, and we just wanted to create a space for new projects and programs that are in the medical cannabis space. And so our speakers today are going to be bringing us new information. I can't wait to see these presentations. And so I'm just going to jump in. We are going to be here for about an hour and a half, and then we're going to go actually into the exhibit hall, and the folks that are speaking are actually going to do a larger demonstration there. So Mark, you want to start it?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Rabe. I'm an integrative holistic medicine doctor from San Diego, home of ASA Chapter of the Year.
Yay.
And in my medical practice, I make medical cannabis recommendations, and my patients range in age from 6 months old to about 94 years old. Prior to establishing Centric Wellness, I was chief medical officer of a network of physician-owned and operated clinics across the state of California. We had 20 clinics and a group of caring and compassionate doctors, and in the 2 years that I did that, we issued over 100,000 recommendations to patients across the state. I'd like to thank Steph and ASA for inviting us here today and allowing us to talk. It's really humbling to see the amount of dedication and sacrifice that's been made on behalf of everyone here in advancement of this cause. And really a theme that has been pervasive throughout the conference has been the importance of educating doctors and healthcare professionals in the value of marijuana as medicine. So I have some good news to report there. In about 3.5 weeks, I've been invited to the University of California, San Diego Medical School to present a grand rounds presentation on the use of medical cannabis in chronic pain. And in that audience will be about 30 pain physician specialists. So a great opportunity to educate the public and health professionals in particular. So today I'd like to spend, one other thing that I do is I am the chairman of the scientific advisory board of a company called Medical Marijuana Sciences, a wholly owned subsidiary of Nuvilex. And Nuvilex has a patented technology to encapsulate cells and is undergoing clinical investigation in the treatment of pancreatic cancer. And Medical Marijuana Sciences has as a mission to combine the anti-cancerous properties of cannabinoids with this cell encapsulation technology to treat serious forms of cancer, such as brain and pancreatic cancer. So this just gets me off the hook for anything that I might say today that is a little bit too forward-looking. When patients come to see me using marijuana as medicine in the setting of cancer, by the way, I've included a lot of good references on these slides, so there is not going to be a test, and you don't have to take notes. The slide deck is already available for you to download at nuvilex.com. So when patients come to see me for using marijuana in the setting of cancer, it's generally to treat symptoms of cancer, such as pain and nausea or vomiting associated with chemotherapy or radiation. So these are palliative treatments. However, back in 1974, the U.S. federal government conducted the first study on the anti-tumor effects of cannabis and found that THC slowed the growth of lung cancers, breast cancers, and virus-induced leukemias in mice and prolonged their lives by 35%. Instead of getting front page in JAMA or New England Journal of Medicine, a little blurb in the Washington Post newspaper, and then the information largely kept out of the public eye until recently. In 1997, the government spent $2 million through the National Toxicology Program, trying to demonstrate as a part of the war on drugs the adverse effects of THC. So they gave large amounts of THC to mice in the efforts to try to show negative effects and harm. To the scientists' chagrin, they found that mice treated with THC lived longer than the control mice, and when they looked into why that was, found that they developed cancer less frequently. In 2006, a small pilot study in Spain had a small group of patients with terminal glioblastoma brain tumors. THC injected directly into those tumors and found that it prolonged those patients' lives compared to the controls. In 2009, a great article published by Alexander and his group, a mini review of all of the medical literature showing the anti-cancerous effects of cannabinoids. And their review showed that there really is great understanding with how marijuana works as medicine. Cannabinoid molecules like THC and CBD, anti-proliferative, they slow the growth of tumor cells. They're anti-metastatic, they slow the spread of tumor cells. Anti-angiogenic, slow the penetration of blood vessels into tumors that cause metastasis. And cannabinoid molecules pro-apoptotic, meaning they speed up the natural life cycle of cells, making them less susceptible to mutation and the formation of cancer. So cannabinoid molecules have been shown to be broadly anti-cancerous against a variety of different cancers. The conclusion of this mini review was that cannabinoids could be useful in the treatment of cancer due to their ability to regulate cellular signaling pathways critical for cell growth and survival. Very, very detailed information has been already uncovered through research to determine how exactly it is that cannabinoids exert their actions, but far from the research that is needed to complete this process. So cell-in-the-box live encapsulation technology, this is Nuvilex's platform to develop various therapies. In 2013, Nuvilex acquired the exclusive worldwide rights to use this technology in the treatment of all forms of cancer and diabetes. So what is cell-in-the-box technology? It is a factory or a biosustainable platform on which a variety of different treatments can be built. Has applications in many different industries, including biotech, research, cosmetics, and agriculture. And the cell encapsulation platform that Cell-in-the-Box provides allows the introduction of molecular precursors or prodrugs that when they come in contact with this factory of cells produce molecular products or activated molecules that exert particular actions. So the process of encapsulation is a two-part process involving cellulose in which cells are encapsulated. Each little capsule of cells contains about 10,000 cells. They can be made larger or smaller depending on what's encapsulated. And once encapsulated, the cells don't change properties. So you can grow cells in culture, and whatever those cells do, they will also do once encapsulated. So the little capsule's about the size of the head of a pin, and these capsules have been shown to be sustainable in the body for long periods of time, in excess of 2 years. The little capsule of cells do not cause an inflammatory response in the body. They don't damage the tissues nearby. They're stable. They can be frozen and stored for long periods of time, making them amenable to shipping and transportation. And the cellular encapsulation process, which is done by the inventors of this technology, Austria Nova, is conducted according to strict manufacturing processes. So the way encapsulation works as a treatment platform is that it's possible to encapsulate cells that activate molecules, and you can then implant these cells in the desired location. So for example, in the treatment of pancreatic cancer, possible to implant these cells near the tumor in the pancreas, introduce a prodrug that would come in contact with these cells, become activated, and then exert targeted chemotherapeutic properties. The encapsulated ball of cells, immune to the immune system cells, don't recognize it, and there are pores in this capsule allowing nutrients to flow in and waste products to flow out. So by delivering a prodrug and becoming exposed to this activating ball of cells, molecules become activated and tumor cells are subsequently destroyed. There's been some research already performed using this technology in the treatment of pancreatic cancer, a work published in the Lancet Journal in Cancer Therapy back in 2001 and 2003. And in this study, 14 patients with advanced inoperable pancreatic cancer were studied. The encapsulated ball of cells was put in near the pancreatic tumors, And when compared to Gemzar, which is the gold standard in the treatment of pancreatic cancer, survival times increased from 23 weeks to 44 weeks, and 1-year survival rates doubled from 18% to 36%. No serious adverse side effects were seen, no inflammation seen near the implanted capsule of cells, and in addition to a response in the pancreas, metastatic liver tumors also reduced in size. And in this study, ifosfamide, a typical, commonly used chemotherapeutic drug, was used with activation by the encapsulated cells. And here's a picture of a CT scan showing the tumor in the pancreas prior to treatment and then tumor subsequent to treatment. So pretty clear to see the shrinkage in that tumor post-therapy. So Medical Marijuana Sciences, a wholly owned subsidiary of Nuvilex, so knowing these broad anti-cancerous properties of cannabis and knowing how cellular encapsulation works and provides a great platform on which to build targeted chemotherapeutic treatments, it's the mission of Medical Marijuana Sciences to combine these two entities to treat serious diseases, initially pancreatic and brain cancers. So pancreatic cancer, very difficult and deadly cancer. 45,000 new cases are reported per year in 2013. Unfortunately, 38,000 deaths. Pancreatic cancer, very difficult to treat because it's generally not diagnosed until later stages of the disease. And the 3 currently FDA-approved treatments for inoperable pancreatic cancer, very limited in their effectiveness, largely limited due to side effects. So there's been good research done with respect to how cannabinoids affect pancreatic cancer cells. THC reduces the growth of tumor cells in mice model, and the CB2 receptor has been shown to play a major role in this effect. Cannabinoids also shown to exert potentially a direct cytotoxic effect against cells. So you mix the two together, and it potentially can kill cancer cells by directly crossing cell membranes and interrupting that intercellular network that you can see kind of an example of here. Cannabinoid receptors also potentially of interest in pancreatic cancer because there's a correlation or an inverse correlation between pain symptoms and the expression of CB or cannabinoid receptors. The conclusion being that the expression of cannabinoid receptors may be an important component in a warning symptom to establish pain symptoms with pancreatic cancer. Brain cancer, another good target for this type of therapy. In the U.S. in 2013, 23,000 new cases of brain cancer, 14,000 deaths. One of the problems with treating brain cancer is getting the chemotherapy molecules to the tumor because in the brain there's a blood-brain barrier that prevents those molecules from crossing. So conventional chemotherapeutic agents, marginally effective. Cannabinoids, however, readily cross the blood-brain barrier, as many of you may already know. Good research done with brain cancer and cannabinoids as well. In Spain in 1996, they put THC right into the brains of brain tumor patients and got some benefit. Research in 2010 showed that the combination of THC and CBD may have a beneficial or a cumulative effect. So the combination of both molecules together may work better than either individually. And here's a good example of how cannabinoids have been shown to treat cancer, a little less scientific than the other studies. But if you look at these pictures right here, this is the MRI scan of a young infant boy about 8 months old. Big white thing in the middle of his brain, glioblastoma multiforme brain tumor. Inoperable, can't give an 8-month-old chemo or radiation therapy, so the oncologist told the parents, nothing really we can do for your son, sorry. So the parents weren't satisfied with that answer. What they did was give the child an oil of cannabis on his pacifier a couple times a day, and over the course of a year, you can see brain tumor pretty much gone. So quite remarkable. So it's not double-blind, placebo-controlled research, but pretty impressive pictures. So at Medical Marijuana Sciences, we have assembled a world-class team of individuals who are now in the process of working on combining cellular encapsulation with cannabinoids to pursue these avenues. We've got Richard Heislip, a distinguished professor of biochemistry and enzymology at the University of Northern Colorado. Tom Matula, applied physicist at the University of Washington with experience in drug delivery development. Brian Sammons, who's the president and CEO of Austrian Nova and co-inventor of cell-in-the-box encapsulation technology. And Garrett Yount, a researcher at the California Pacific Medical Research Institute in San Francisco, who has experience in molecular biology and clinical research. And of course, California Pacific Medical Research Institute, a very esteemed institution from which has been generated a number of cannabinoid-related studies, including one by Dr. Marcoux, which showed that CBD, when given to mice with breast cancer that was metastatic to the lungs, made the primary tumors in the lungs shrink, the primary tumor in the breast shrink, and the lung metastases disappear. A great team of individuals that we have put together to advance this cause. So in a nutshell, the advantages that cellular encapsulation and cannabinoids have when put together is that you have a platform which is cellular-based, biosustainable, inert, not recognized by the body. And it serves as the factory to which products can be brought and processed to produce certain end products. So in the case of cannabinoids, the products that are brought to the factory are cannabinoid plant-based. The factory itself is biosustainable and inert, and based on our knowledge of cannabinoids and their results, very safe and efficacious. So we currently have preclinical investigations underway. There's a couple of different patents that are associated with this technology, and you can get those off of the slide deck. And really, marijuana makes a great medicine, both for cancer and in broad terms. And as the quote up on the railing there shows from Judge Francis Young, who was a DEA law judge back in 1988, and based on his analysis at the time, he suggested that eating 10 raw potatoes can elicit a toxic response. In contrast, it's physically impossible to consume enough marijuana to induce death. And Judge Young's final conclusion, marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man. By any measure of rational analysis, marijuana can be safely used within a supervised routine of medical care. So our contact information is available on the slide deck as well. So if you have any questions or would like to speak further, we'll be over in the exhibit hall. Please feel free to stop by and ask any questions. As well, feel free to contact me, and would be more than happy to provide any answers or assistance that we can. Thank you very much.
Mark, I think we have enough time. I think I'm going to take some questions right now for you, if that's all right.
That'd be great.
Does anyone have any questions for Mark? I have one and then two.
Yeah, it doesn't degrade in the body, and it's stable for at least 2 years. Well, at least 2 years worth, and it is a little, just a little factory of cells that can be implanted at the tumor site and live indefinitely. So it would be implanted using radiologic guidance, so very easy for an interventional radiologist to just insert a little cannula or tube, put it into the blood supply that goes to the tumor, and then the little capsules will implant on the arterial wall, which carries the blood supply to the tumor.
What's the eventual degradation of that material that the cells are put in?
Eventually it will probably, just dissolve and be resorbed by the body.
Question back here?
Yes.
His question was, are there any applications for bladder cancer?
So cellular encapsulation is most amenable to solid tumors that can be directly accessed. So pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer would be the most notable examples. With bladder cancer, a little bit more challenging due to the nature of the cancer. Yes?
I'll do one and then two.
Does Nuvilex accept any new patients for trials, especially pancreatic cancer?
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked. Nuvilex is just in the process now of beginning phase 3 clinical trials. These are going to be conducted in Europe, and Nuvilex has enlisted the help of Dr. Daniel von Hoff, who is the world-leading authority in pancreatic cancer, who is going to help develop these clinical trials through his company TD2, or Translational Drug Development. So those trials are just getting organized and underway currently, so stay tuned.
Terry?
I'm cheating. It's not a question. It's just I want everybody to know that Dr. Rabe just testified to a criminal trial, and people were acquitted for growing
Any other questions for Mark? Dr. Mark, any other questions? Right here.
Do you anticipate that it will be covered by medical insurance?
Hopefully, ultimately, because it is targeted chemotherapy. Good news is it, hopefully won't cost too much compared to other therapies.
Any other questions? Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker has just started a new project that I'm excited to be a part of. But I want to say a little bit about Greta. If you guys haven't met Greta, you will. But Greta comes from Washington, and she actually started an Americans for Safe Access chapter in Washington State. And as she was doing that work, she realized that what was going on in the state was that they really needed regulations for the medical cannabis industry. And she started an industry trade group that actually started working with the city of Seattle to pass regulations so that there is safe access in Seattle. And a lot of that is because of Greta's work. And so I'm just so honored to be working with her and can continue to work with her. So thank you so much.
I'm going to time myself because I have a tendency to go down a rabbit hole. So 3 hours later, we'll be saying, when is she wrapping up? Folks, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'd just like to share a little bit about what brought me here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about education. I come from a very conservative background. Well, it's pretty conservative. I'm actually one of those Republicans, and I lived in Florida for a while. I now live in Seattle, and the interesting fact or the difference between the two is not only the climate, but in in Florida, we have churches on every corner. In Seattle, we have Starbucks. So, but very traditional business background, banking, construction, real estate, things like that. Cannabis has been part of my life since I've been 18. I was self-medicating then, single mom at the time of 5 kids, and I thank God that I had cannabis to come home to at night to kind of bring me down a couple notches. Otherwise, I probably would have been going through a case of wine a week or something. Excuse me. But, yeah, that would be, hello, I'm Greta Carter, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, no. So then, about 6 years ago, though, cannabis really became my life, and my son had actually introduced me to the idea of looking at it as a business. I did quite a bit of research, and because I take words like integrity and credibility and standards really to the core of who I am, I'm very cautious about who I want to align myself with. And so I did quite a bit of research on the internet to find out who was making a difference out in the world of cannabis. And about 6 years ago, it was a different environment, you guys. It was a lot different. But still, what I could find consistently out there was that Americans for Safe Access was walking the talk. And I kept, this name, Steph Shear, just kept popping up. And I kept making phone calls and trying to get Steph to listen to me and trying to get her attention. Couldn't get her attention then at that point, but persistence paid off. And I'm really pleased to say today, not only are we partners, but we're good friends too. So thank you.
So just keep emailing me if you don't hear from me is the moral of the story.
That is the moral of the story. Persistence pays off. The other moral of the story, too, there is for all of you folks who are kind of just entering the world of cannabis, it's like, and you're wondering how do you get started and how do you come out of that green closet. It truly is if you start and that was the beginning for me, is if you start a chapter, Americans for Safe Access chapter, you start to surround yourself with like-minded people, and then what that starts to do too is elevate you as a thought leader in the community and someone to go to that has creditable knowledge. So I can't stress that enough, that's a really good first step. Okay, one of the other things I wanted to one of the many things I want to share with you is that what we're finding is that our movement is maturing, and it's maturing very rapidly. And what we can see is that traditional business traits and characteristics and skill sets are merging very nicely with the movement. And as we continue to grow and have, this is a good example. I mean, who would have thought 7, 8 years ago that we would actually be able to be in a room surrounded by professionals and patients and talking openly about cannabis, not to mention medicating. Huge progress that's been made. And when I looked at, coming back and forth from Florida, going to California, looking at the different businesses out there before I really did make my step into the world of cannabis, I was finding myself on the airplanes taking the magazines and the material that I would bring home with me and hiding them in newspapers and hiding them in my briefcase and scared to death that somebody outside of California would see that I'm actually interested in cannabis. And I think I was also worried about what my 95-year-old mom was going to say about it too. And she actually saw a clip where I was on CNN, and she's in South Dakota. So, we're talking, So she calls me up and she says, honey, she says, I just saw you on TV. And I says, yeah, Mom? And she says, you aren't doing anything with that POT, are you? And I say, oh, Mom, I am. I am. But it's a good thing, and she would be so proud to see that I'm with a group of folks like you all right now. So don't be afraid to get out there. You do need to make your journey known and the effects that this plant has had on your life. And the more normal we become to those that are around us and the more accepting, the greater progress that we'll all have. So through the course of that journey of now, I openly will have cannabis on my t-shirt. Excuse me, thank you. Excuse me a minute. I'll openly let people know who it is and who I am and what it is that I'm doing. And what got me to that point of confidence was clearly, when I reflected back on that, was education. I just so believe that education is going to correct the ignorance that's out there. The ignorance not just with family members understanding who we are, but legislators understanding the safety of this plant, lawyers knowing how to give good consulting to the people that are knocking on their door so bad precedences aren't set. People that are in the industry need to know how to file their taxes. Patients are always asking, what about my children? How do I talk to my children about cannabis? There's just a strong need for education. Excuse me. And so then what I wanted to do, knowing that education is the direction that I wanted to go, is how do you separate yourself from there's a, gosh, I want to be kind and I don't want to say disparaging things, but here I go. We are, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to capitalize on where the interest is right now. And a lot of people charging a lot of money for things that they say and profess that they're experts in. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. One of you folks I had just talked to recently was saying that he took a course online or something and got a certificate from him, and the certificate was signed by Bud Green. So you know, you have to be cautious. But what I will tell you as a really word of advice is that Google them. I mean, with the days of the internet, if you Google somebody and if there's nothing out there on them other than what their website says about them, then, you know, challenge what have they really done in the movement to get us to the point of where we are becoming more and more mainstream. And I'd say start that. But then also what we wanted to do with our institute was we wanted to go down, or we are down the path of accreditation. It's a long and laborious, very bureaucratic process, but it begins with some key components, and those key components are components that Cannabis Training Institute is embracing. And it's at least a 3-year journey for us, where you have to have developed enough courses and had 2 classes go through those courses and graduated with them before you'll be considered as accredited. And what my vision for the Institute is that when, you know, say if it's a Phoenix or say if it's a Kaplan, and there's folks that want to become certified in the world of cannabis, that they will at that point consider our institute as that accreditation. So then, like, I was talking to Steph, and it was like, okay, we're brainstorming, you know, how do you continue to separate yourselves from the others? Technology is a big part of it. And we're going to see a higher demand for technology in our growing industry when it comes to whether it's regulations, whether it's inventory controls, commercial, larger scale grows. Technology is going to continue to play a key piece of that. So we invested in some really great technology online. I'm all about collaboration, too. I can't wait to talk to Dr. Korn in more detail, too, because if someone else is doing something out there and they've got great information, why wouldn't we want to collaborate? So what Steph and I came up with, too, is that there's a lot of the training organizations out there are personality-driven, and we both wanted to create something that was more sustainable, that's going to become a legacy project, that generations from now still sustain themselves. So what we also saw is that there's a lot of models, and I used it myself in another version of the training that I did, but where you put a subject matter expert in a room and let them talk to you. You quickly find when that happens that because a person is a subject matter expert does not necessarily mean that they know how to effectively convey that knowledge to adult learners. And so it was like, okay, so we got subject matter experts because that's where we're going to have to pull that expertise. But now there's a piece that's missing, and that piece that was missing, oh, we got the technology, so we got that down. But the other part was, how do we find there's this whole profession out there called professional educators, right? So it's like, let's try to marry professional educators, instructional designers is what they're called in my organization, with subject matter experts to create a module online that isn't inhibited by borders or time, and it's at the convenience of the person wanting to learn more about the product. So our institute is all about cannabis, and it's we started with the core basic curriculum provided by Americans for Safe Access, and also done jointly with APA, and that gives us a certification where folks can, whether you're just entering into the industry and wanting to find a way to separate yourself from a lot of the noise that's going on in the various states, or whether it's you're a business and you're trying to work on how do I let the rest of the world know that I am a patient-focused certified business. So we got that online. And we're going to continue to grow our curriculum. I would like to get us up to about 200 modules. All our modules are around 15 minutes. And then those modules get aggregated to create courses. And then those courses become certifications. One of the things that we're also going to see in our industry is that with legalization continuing to grow as rapidly as what it is, we've got some incredible people that are going to be displaced workers. Just as any industry that evolves, our industry will as well. We have cultivation people that have been serving patients for, at least in Washington, I can tell you, for 20 years. And now those people are going to be entering into a new industry where regulations and all this technology is coming about, profit margins are going to shrink. They may not be able to make that transition. And so it's like we need to be sensitive to that and learn and figure out ways to help them in the new world. And part of that in our vision is that we will help train them and get them certified. So if perhaps they can't evolve into the being their own grower, that they will become certified master growers that can work for other businesses as we see the new business evolve. So I am at, I actually have like 6 more minutes to talk, and I've run out of everything unless I want to start a new subject. So if anybody's got any questions, I would love to answer them.
Go ahead.
I'm in New York, hopefully become legal in legal state. I'm really worried about the hexane and the kinds of solvents that growers are going to start using, dispensaries will use. Do you give advice to growers and dispensaries on being solvent-free?
I appreciate your question, because that is a concern that I have as a patient, is the solvents that are used when you're processing. I am not qualified to be able to answer that for you. That science is still evolving. I will share with you that in Washington, what's a deep concern for me is that the demand for oils is so high, and the profit margin is pretty significant, that we see people using butane processing in basements and in garages, and we've had a couple of fires, and yeah, it's pretty concerning. So I know that in the processing side of the certification, we're putting standards in, right?
There's one of the things that we're doing at American Safe Access in partnership with the American Herbal Products Association is actually getting these best practice standards to regulators, and we just started putting these out last year, and states are adopting them. And so one of the things that they include are solvent lists, and we're also working with the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia on a cannabis monograph that has a list of safe solvents. So we actually have been able to move forward. And I would suggest, if you haven't purchased a cannabis monograph, we have them at the bookstore, and it has that information. Questions? Lynn?
Yeah, the training materials are great, by the way.
Oh, thank
Thank you.
you, Lynn. Thanks.
I would like to be able to use some of
Wait, they might not have heard that, Lynn, so I'm going to repeat it. Okay. Lynn Goodman from New Mexican just said the training materials were great, so thanks.
What was your question?
Yeah.
so we would like to be able to use some of those for presentation materials to new patients, because there's a great baseline education. We do it anyway, but it would, on a one-to-one basis, it would be great to be able to have a once-a-week thing. New patients come in and see them. I'd like to be able to use some of the medical ones for presentations and medical professionals. Is there any way we can access those other than the test site itself?
Yeah.
Can we use them?
Boy, Lynn, thank you. And Lynn just asked the question if there was a way that he could get some of the access to the materials that we develop for his patient base. And you're presenting a new opportunity for me, Lynn. So I'm going to work on that with Steph, and we'll figure out a way that we can do a takeaway for you. So thank you for that. Is there anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you.
So actually, when Greta first brought this idea to me, we were in the process of getting ready to launch the certification program. And for the patient-focused certification, there's a requirement that all of the staff in the businesses have to be trained. And it's a lot of overhead to send trainers on various subjects to across the country to train dispensary staff or cultivation staff. And so when Greta mentioned that she was putting this together, I told her that I had an issue that I needed a solution. I needed an online solution for. And so it's pretty amazing to watch things that you've written turn into these online modules that are just beautiful. And if you haven't had a chance, do you have them over at the? So when we break, go over and visit Greta's table and see a sample of these trainings. They're really phenomenal. And actually, all of our staff took them, and every one of our staff said that they learned something. So I think you're really going to enjoy them. And if you take them all, you get a certification that has our logo on it that says, "I know my stuff." No, it doesn't really say that. But you can use it that way. But I have talked to a lot of individuals who are, who are preparing for industries to come, right? So people in Florida, people in Nevada right now, in Oregon, they're looking for ways to get into this industry, not just from the entrepreneurial side, but just to work in this industry. And it's really amazing to be able to send someone somewhere and have something that's going to allow them to stand out when they apply for a job, right? And I've heard back from several businesses that it's exciting to know that there's going to be a place to send their employees to do this education, so that when they are hiring a new position, that they're going to be hiring people that have gone through this education. So check it out. It's pretty phenomenal. And not just because it's my content. Okay, maybe just because it's my content. No, just kidding. So the next person I'd like to introduce is Bianca Barnhill. Bianca has been on our board for 2 years and has been working on various patient outreach projects. And she's going to share some of her newest work with you. Bianca.
Hi, everybody. How are you this afternoon? Happy Sunday at the ASA second annual conference. It is an honor to be here. Speaking for me is going a little bit out of my comfort zone. I far prefer talking to people rather than talking at people, but I will kind of do my best to keep focused. I get a little bit nervous, so be patient with me. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I survived cancer almost 10 years ago. And I became a cannabis patient after being put on 13 medications post-cancer. I replaced those 13 medications with cannabis, and within 6 weeks was off all of the medication. Thank you. So since that glorious time in my life, I've been like screaming to the masses about this magnificent plant and getting as educated as possible about the benefits of it. And clearly, I always tell people, I know about 50% more than you do, but I still don't know everything that there is to know, because this plant is so complex, and its benefits, its incarceration, its prohibition, there's so many, facets to the drug war and prohibition in general. So I'm a campaigner. I believe that the knowledge that we get as a community here in spaces like this, it is our duty to campaign the idea through social media, through our friends and family. When we leave here, the inspirational stories that we hear about it curing brain tumors, and if you stand up for people who are growing it, you can, help them from being incarcerated. There's all of these wonderful things that are happening in progress, but we as a community here are like-minded, but as you know, you leave these doors and you're dealing with people who aren't as like-minded. One of the things that I've noticed as an activist is that the most thing that people are affected by is when they know someone who's been affected by a disease that cancer's helped them. And that is the biggest way to get them to change their mind about the plant in general. As you all know, the war on drugs has been really big about dealing with propaganda. And we're at a stage where that's much less, but you still have a lot of people who believe that the plant is the devil's weed. I mean, they're still showing reefer madness to first graders in schools. And so it's up to people like us that, are the new cannabis consumer. We're well-groomed, we're well-spoken, we're entrepreneurial, we're educated. I always like to say that I'm a rational and not a radical, because this movement for many, many years has gotten a really bad stigma of being radical. I do come from a family of activism. My family my uncle has represented High Times for the last 40 years of its existence. So for me to become a cannabis patient, I grew up with a very Republican parents, and then I had my aunt and uncle over here that were super activists. So there was somebody that I personally had to look up to. So when I made the transition 10 years ago, when it wasn't as popular as it is now to try it, I had someone that I had faith in that had this excellent existence to say, well, he's not doing too bad, and his life is, he's been married to my aunt for 40 years. So it was somebody that I had the opportunity to look up to. And I think that all of us in this room have the opportunity to be that for somebody else who might be afraid or might have the propaganda against the plant still in their communities. When I was raising funds for patients to come here as a board member, I have some brothers and sisters in Indiana who responded to me via phone rather than email saying, I work for the government, so I can't, but I'll send you a check because I believe in it too, but I can't reply on my email address. And they're in the Midwest. So, we are lucky to be in forward-thinking cities and a forward-thinking movement, but there are still many, many people out there who don't think the same way that we do. So it is a courageous act for us to come out and keep the conversation going. That leads me to the Spark the Conversation campaign. I often have this conversation with many like-minded people at dinners, and Steph and I talk a lot about how we are always having this conversation. Once people find out if you're an activist, or that you have an interest, or that you're a grower, or something to do with cannabis, and they're curious, you kind of become the doctor at the table. Before there was Google, and people are like, oh my God, you're a doctor, I've got this little ache, and they just won't shut up and keep asking you questions about it because they're so curious. And so the Spark the Conversation campaign is the idea that there's so many wonderful organizations with different platforms creating change and bringing their passion to the forefront. And the idea of Spark the Conversation is to bring that all into one media platform, because media is our biggest way of getting the message out there. Instead of letting the other media handle it, where they deal with their own propaganda and they call us potheads and stoners, and they have negative connotations to it, because it's still happening. As much as this movement has taken a wonderful turn, and we are the year of the horse, it's 2014, we are taking action, there's still a lot of negative Nellies. And I think that this is a campaign that can really prove them wrong and steer them in a different direction and allow people to go to one place to have the say that they want to have and get the message out that they want to get out in a condensed and interesting arena. So I am looking forward to sharing that a little bit more with you. We do our first launch on 4/20. Because I think keeping it kitschy and hip is a little bit fun. There's an audience out there of young people who weren't stuck in the propaganda years, and they are ready to vote and do whatever it kind of takes. And I think that they need to be encouraged to be more active as an activist. Clearly, if you use cannabis, if you consume it, you're in your own lane already. And so I think that a lot of people that don't realize that they are patients, because everyone who consumes cannabis is using it for some medicinal reason, even if they don't believe it, in my opinion. Needs to, take it more seriously and be more of a medical patient about it and be more active as an activist. And that's how we can create the change we need to see. These politicians, these lawmakers, if there's numbers out there, they can be swayed. And so sometimes targeting them in general is rough. There was somebody in a panel yesterday that said, I'm sorry, he wasn't in a panel. He kind of led the opening. I forgot his name. Jim, yes. And he said, bring legislation to us that you're proud of. And so I think that in this sort of a thing with campaigning, we can bring the real message. I mean, I'm so touched by everybody who's spoken here, and I can't wait to take this home, even just to my friends and family, and share the information that I learned, and have them share it with their friends and family. And again, that's kind of, you know, how campaigning goes. It's that, you know, you teach me, I'll teach you, and that's how we create change. So I'm kind of a believer that campaigning is super important, because it's the way to create change for our community, for our business growth, for the beginning of the end of the drug war. And as you know, 1 in 4 people in this room will get cancer in their lifetime. So for me, I like to tell people that as a statistic that really drives home. You know, Steph shared that with me, and it's resonated with me since she said it to me 4 years ago, and I use that a lot. Because if I'm faced with it again, I don't want to have to make a choice of breaking the law to use my medicine or being put on pharmaceuticals again, which were killing me. I want to create the change I want to see between now and hopefully never, that I will get sick again. And so thank you. So taking action now is just being proactive, and it's time to spark the conversation with your friends, your family, like-minded people. If you're not on social media, get on social media. Even if it's just your friends and family, there is so much information on the internet, positive information on the internet nowadays, and it's an easy way to share your activism with people in your community and people that love you. And you really can't be denied the powerful message that you're spreading on social media. Facebook's the easiest one to do if nobody's into it. Twittering and the whole Instagram, I mean, that's a whole bigger, you know, if you're a business and you have a brand, it makes sense to do that. But if you're just a personal activist or a doctor or somebody who wants to spread information that they've learned, it's a really, really great platform to use for campaigning. And I encourage everyone that leaves here this weekend to go home and tell everybody everything you possibly can about what you learned this weekend, and spark the conversation with your family and friends. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions for Bianca?
Don't leave me, somebody asked something now. I came back to the podium. Barnhill. Sorry? Sparktheconversation.org. And the email that you can reach me at is info@sparktheconversation.org. If you have an organization that you would like to do the radio show that we're putting together and get your message out there, please email me. That's the goal, is for everyone to be able to have the opportunity to spread their message.
Another question?
I just wanted to say that I want to share with everyone how powerful social media can be. In 1 week alone, I post articles all year long on, reputable articles that I find out on the internet internationally. And in 1 week alone, I had 3 people from all over the country contact me for more information. Remember, just keep posting them.
Yeah.
Your friends will be able to like it. Other people are going to feel stigmatized. And that if they were to like it, then it'll show up on their pages, and they might become ostracized by the community, by their jobs, or something else. I think to put the information out there, make sure it's good science, but people will contact you and come to you. At least send them in the right direction. Send them towards ASA.
Yeah.
Social media is really an important tool.
It
for
is.
us to all use and get the message out there. That's part of the reason why Charlotte's parents found out about CBDs, because Jaden and Jason up in Mendocino, California, had posted pictures of this child who was having these incredible grand mal seizures.
Yeah. It's a very important platform, and even for raising funds. I mean, if you tweet and you get a following, and everyone who believes weed should be legalized, cannabis should be legalized, if they all donated $1, we would not have the issues that we have of financing, organizations like ASA that are at the forefront of creating change. So social media is extremely important for like-minded people to find one another and to spread excellent information on this plant that is literally curing disease. So.
Thank you, Bianca. Is Jess in here? I can't see the back of the room. I'm supposed to have glasses, and now I know it. Is Jess in here? I guess not. I'm sorry. Was there another question? Okay. Can we get a round of applause for this amazing panel? I think what's so exciting is, from last year's panel that was like this, just seeing the progress and how new organizations and new technologies are moving our movement forward. So thank you all so much for your work. We are, oh yeah, clap for them a little bit more. I didn't mean to cut off your clapping. So what we're going to do for the rest of the day, I'm just going to give you guys a little summary of the rest of the day today and then tomorrow. So we're going to go from here into the exhibit hall. The speakers are going to be there. They're going to be able to answer more questions, any questions that you guys have. We have other exhibitors in there, so we'll make sure that you spend time with them. Martin Lee is going to be doing a book signing at 3 o'clock at the bookstore. And we're almost sold out of the books, so I know you guys have them, so bring them and get them signed by Martin. And then this afternoon, from 4 to 5:30, we're going to actually do some trainings. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of those because people have been asking me a bunch of questions. So the first one is the most important one because I'm doing it. I'm just kidding. Is our facilitation training. And what that means is it's basically how to run a meeting successfully, how to make sure that you're going to use the time and everyone else's time at a meeting to meet the objectives and goals that you have as a group. People spend a lot of resources trying to get people to come to their meetings. Most of their resources actually trying to get people to come. And then when people do come, if the meeting isn't run well or people feel like their time was wasted, they're not going to come back. And this is actually, out of all the trainings I do, this is my favorite. So if you're in a chapter or thinking about starting a chapter or in another organization or just tired of being at bad meetings, come to that training. The online advocacy training is actually Talana Lattimore. I think a few of you have talked to her this weekend. When she's not putting on amazing conferences, she is our social media director. And she has been able to take Americans for Safe Access, our Facebook page, from 10,000 to nearly 40,000 in just 6 months. She's phenomenal. And she's going to talk about how you can utilize online advocacy in the work that you do. A lot of times, I actually thought that if you just put stuff on Facebook, that's all you're supposed to do. So I've learned a lot from Talana, and it's really an amazing way to reach thousands of people, as Bianca mentioned. Chris Hermes, who is our media liaison, is going to be doing a spokesperson training. I see he has a fan club, a much well-deserved fan club. At this training, Chris is going to help you take your personal story and match it with talking points for our movement to combine them so that you're able to stay on topic as far as what the goals are of your campaign, whether it's a state campaign or a local campaign, but how to personalize it and make it about your story and to feel comfortable telling that story. And there'll also be tips on doing interviews, and I think it's probably going to make you practice a little bit. So it's also will be good for you for tomorrow. And then the other training is a lobby training. Don Duncan, the famous Don Duncan, is going to be doing the ABCs of citizen lobbying, basically. It's going to explain sort of how to set up a meeting, what to do once you're in the meeting, what not to do in the meeting, what to do after that meeting. And so for folks who have never taken lobby training or are a little nervous about your meetings tomorrow, this will be a great training for you. And then tonight, we're having a party at Opera Ultra Lounge. The map is in here. It's just a few blocks away. You can walk, but we're also that's where we're going to announce the winners of the silent auction. If you haven't bid on anything yet, it's pretty amazing. We actually have a preview out there. But we'll be at this reception from 7 to 9. We're just going to kick back and have a good time. There's not a program except for just getting to hang out with me. Each other. And you can, sorry. You guys are all buying me a drink, and then I won't be around for the next week. So tomorrow morning, we're actually gonna be in a different area of the hotel. Just make sure you check your map. We're gonna be in the Colonial Room, which I believe is it's either downstairs, upstairs, I don't remember, but it's at the map, oh, it's downstairs, thank you. And we're gonna have a big breakfast together, and then we're gonna have our closing panel from there, and we're gonna do a little mini lobby training. So if you're not able to go to the lobby training today, we're just going to do like a really quick sort of role play, make sure everybody is ready for their meetings, and then we're going to hear from some of our attendees this year. And we're actually not having a press conference tomorrow. So I know it says this in here, and I'll tell you why. So it's going to be pouring rain. It's pouring down rain tomorrow. So just be ready to get wet. There's directions on here of how to get over to the Capitol for your meetings, but we don't have space for an outdoor press conference this year. So we are doing a congressional briefing, but that briefing, and there will be press at that briefing, but that briefing is in a small room, and it's actually for congressional staff. So we're bringing many of the speakers that were here to give that information to congressional staff, and so we can't fill up the room. We are going to try, if it's dry by the afternoon, at 3 o'clock to meet back at the Capitol to see if we can get a photo, but the weather does not look like that's going to be possible. So, I'm just going to take a picture of you all now. This one's for me. All right, so, and then tomorrow morning, you're going to check in, and we're going to give you a list of all of your meetings, where to go. You're going to have lobby materials. We're going to make sure you know who's going to the meetings with you, but we've been able to set up close to 300 meetings for tomorrow from all of you. So if you're registered, we set up a meeting with both of your senators and your member of Congress. So they're definitely going to know we're here. Wear your name tag while you're walking down the halls of Congress. It's pretty phenomenal to see each other in the hallways, but congressional staff definitely notice when they've been walking around all day seeing a bunch of people with purple name tags. There is, I think you guys know this, but the Capitol is on federal grounds. Do I have to say anything else? All right, I'm just going to say that again. The Capitol, this is crazy, is on federal grounds. So, and we don't, even though we have an amazing staff that can help with crises in small facilities like this, we don't have a huge staff to, I mean, obviously if somebody is in trouble, we will help, but just be mindful that this is still barely legal for patients in the district. So just be thoughtful, and I'm not going to say much more about that. And so that's it actually. I'm sorry? No, it does not. It does not. It barely even has any patients yet. But the 130 patients are really enjoying the program. I just want, before we break, if you guys haven't had a chance to say thank you to Talana, she did a phenomenal job. I thought this was such a smooth conference. All right, so ready for the rest of the afternoon? Any questions about the schedule, where we're going, where you're going? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Except for you? No, I'm just kidding. What? I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Did someone find a phone with a pink otter cover? Oh, Hunter has it. Yes. Wait, but before you leave, I really do want a picture. Can I get peace signs from everybody? 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, you guys are beautiful. You know, I think I said this last year, but you know, and I think this goes to what Bianca was saying, is that when most people think about the medical cannabis movement, I don't think that this is what they're thinking of, right? Like look around. I mean, you guys are as American as apple pie. And I think that that's the message we have to make sure that people understand, right? That we are approachable, that being a part of this movement, you know, is exciting, and we're making history, and all of you are making history. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the afternoon. Come to my training, and I'll see you guys tonight.